The Ark of the Covenant. God has always been invisible, yet from the very beginning he chose to teach his people through things they could see, touch, and approach. That becomes immediately clear with the most sacred object in all of Scripture, the Ark of the Covenant. But before the Ark is understood properly, Scripture makes something else clear. The Bible is not filled with sacred objects because God needed them. It's because we did. Human beings learn through symbols. We remember through physical markers, and God, knowing that, met his people where they were. At the same time, Scripture is careful to draw a boundary. These objects were never charms, never shortcuts, never magic. They functioned as teaching tools, they marked covenant, and they established boundaries around holiness. When God gave instructions for sacred objects, he wasn't designing religious furniture. He was teaching Israel how to understand his presence. The power was never in the object itself. It was always in God's command and God's nearness. Nowhere is that clearer than with the Ark. The Ark was not large, elaborate, or impressive by worldly standards, but it carried extraordinary meaning. It stood at the very center of Israel's worship because it represented something unprecedented, the presence of the living God dwelling among his people. Inside the ark were 3 items, each telling part of the story of Israel's relationship with God. The tablets of the law represented God's revealed will. Aaron's rod represented God's chosen authority. The manna represented God's faithful provision in the wilderness. Together they held history, covenant, and dependence in one place. Above the ark was the mercy seat, not a throne of judgment, but the place where atonement was made. God tells Moses plainly, "There I will meet with you." Exodus 25:22. Not everywhere, not casually, there. God was teaching that his presence was real but not common. The ark symbolized something radical. The God who cannot be contained chose to dwell among his people, but he did so on his own terms. Coming near to him required reverence. Access came through sacrifice, and his presence was never something to be treated lightly. That distinction mattered. When Israel treated the ark as a lucky object, disaster followed. When they honored it as the dwelling place of God, blessing followed. The difference was never the ark itself. It was how seriously they treated the God who made it sacred, and that sets the tone for every sacred object that follows in the Bible. They were never about power people could control. They were about a presence meant to be respected. And as the story continues, something remarkable happens. God begins moving from objects that represent his presence to something far more personal.